G Stash and G Route. This is episode 6, the finale and the final stream for SEDA for the year. And who better to join us to cap the SEDA Stash series than Jack here from Routescan, alongside CEO from SEDA, Peter. Great to have you both. For the finale, we've talked modularity, we've talked chain abstraction, we've talked it all this year. We've followed the story as it has unfolded. Arguably, Routescan is one of the most active chain abstraction account narrators in crypto Twitter, one of our favorites. So very excited to have you for the last episode, Jack. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Oh shit, I got this problem. What? It's so weird.
It's tracking,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, good.
I don't know why it keeps happening. Right? Okay. So yeah, thank you for having me, Matt and Peter. And yeah, we are a pretty active account in chain abstraction by you too, and it's like we're building this narrative together.
Yeah.
Just seems like we're the two most active accounts, like company accounts on this.
And shout out to Tabasco from Particle Network as well.
Oh yeah,
it's the trifecta.
Yeah, also, yes, yes.
It's great to have you guys on, and maybe as a great way to kick off. There's more to Routescan than the fabulous 10 out of 10 memes that are being dropped on crypto Twitter daily. So it'd be great to get a little introduction into yourself, how you got started in the space, and hear more about what you guys are doing at Routescan and kind of why you're plugged into the chain abstraction narrative.
So yeah, it's really weird. I don't know what keeps happening. Let me.
Meme gods, man.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's really really weird. Okay, I don't know. So Routescan is like, if we when I talk about it, it has a really long description. Like it is a unified multi-chain, multi-ecosystem block explorer platform. What does all this means? It means that we make block explorers and we make it so that they natively connect to each other. Like most people were used to, I think up until 2021, 2022, to have their block explorer as a single chain website. So if I want to go to see Ethereum transactions, I go to etherscan.io. If I want to see BNB chain transaction, I go to bscscan.com or whatever, and I see the transactions like in a single website. A single website for Ethereum, single website for BNB, and that was working well because there were like 20, 30 major chains, major EVM chains that you could count. But right now we have, and we've been researching this for a few months, there are more than, and that this keeps happening, I don't know, there are more than 1,780 chains, most with EVM, SVM, Cosmos, whatever, that are live and or in testnet. And this really is like our total addressable market. And the thing is, with all these blockchains, you need to have a way of not switching from one block explorer to the other. And a lot of tooling has been building towards that. So we have unified wallets, we have unified analytics, we have unified, like, I don't know, Dune. You can do like multi-chain charts on Dune. You can also do multi-chain interoperability, oracles, bridges, and so on. But why do you not need to have like a unified block explorer? And this has two main components. So the first one is from a like power user perspective. It's that you don't need to switch, and you also have everything in one place, like DBank. Everyone has like portfolio across many chains, and so we have the address details page that checks everything that you have across all the chains that we support. But also for developers, you also have a single page for a contract that for every contract that is in a single address, with a single string address. And this is very easy for multi-chain multi-chain native developers, like for example Zora. Zora is a chain and an app that it's NFT ecosystem, let's say, and they deployed on Zora first, but now they deployed I think on 6 or 7 chains, and they use Routescan to check their contracts across all the chains they support, and also on the chain, and they are asking us about chains that we don't yet support, but support for many more chains. Bigger chains is coming next year. So we are striving to support anything either through service contracts, like to taking deals with the companies that build the chains, or through grant programs, either proactive or retroactive grant programs. So at the end of 2024, I had the personal goal, to go with 100 chains by end of year. And if you count it, it depends on how you count it. Because if you count it like unique chains, we're not there. We're now indexing 68. I think we're about to cross the 70 chains threshold by end of year. But if you count testnet and mainnets, we're way above 100. We're like 140. So we have like achieve that goal, if from for certain points of view. So yeah, that's what Routescan is. I hope that answers the question, because every time I try to make a different definition, not to bore myself out.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I mean, I'm obviously a big fan of what you guys are building. I remember the first time basically leaving the EVM ecosystem back in 2019, 2020. We were building a protocol on Near and also doing some stuff on Solana, and interacting with their block explorers was like literally hell. And I remember the first time going to like a Near block explorer, and they did a good job building Explorer, but it was like so different from what I was used to with something like Etherscan that I had like such a hard time to kind of like make sense of the transactions and understand exactly what I was doing. And I think that now I can't imagine in like a chain abstracted future, right, where you're on maybe 20, 30, 40 different networks with your assets, to have to go in and individually learn a new interface every time, a new Explorer interface, and also to manage your portfolio across like all these different networks and addresses. It can become like super cumbersome. So I'm a super big fan of what you guys are working on, because I think that it's going to be a very big difficulty. And I know also existing Explorer companies have a very hard time scaling. And the fact that you guys are able to support so many chains so quickly is really incredible, because I know that Etherscan usually charges like 1 to 1.5 million per year to maintain an integration, and it can take like months and months and months. And I was joking to Matt just at lunch before we came over for this live stream that you guys are actually solving a very similar problem to us, in that instead of sort of like having a Oracle deployed to every single network, we just built a network that can basically power oracles, right? And you can build your own Oracle program and have it accessible from any network. And I think that's the same challenge that you guys have, which is a new network pops up. They now have to figure out their entire infrastructure stack. And the Explorer is arguably the most important piece of that infrastructure stack, to be able to understand what's happening on your chain, what addresses, what transactions, et cetera, are happening. And if you don't have access to that, and you can build your own custom Explorer, or wait 9 months to have an Explorer support you, you're basically dead in the water as a project while you wait for that. I think that's cool. The approach that you guys are taking to solve that problem at scale horizontally is very similar to the challenge that we have with oracles as well.
Yeah, and it makes me think that actually a block explorer provider like us, it's not like specifically a Web3 company, but more of a Web2 company providing service to Web3 companies, because we don't have smart contract developers. Like we don't need to. We have smart contracts analysts and researchers, because we need to understand what's happening on the chain, but we don't develop smart contracts ourselves unless we launched a token. That is, and yeah, yes,
Is there a little bit of alpha there?
Yeah. Make that what you will.
were you hinting at something? I was.
The ticker is loud.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another thing, and also we really try to tackle the really important fact that chains most of the times cannot afford to have a high quality explorer, and sometimes they just go build with their open source, or they want to build themselves. But the thing is, a block explorer is not simply a website that shows you blocks and transactions. Well, in 2017 it was that, but right now it's not. Right now it's a full full suite of developer tools that you need to be aware of what narrative doing, like, because we've been building like most of the Etherscan feature set, but we've also been building like other tools that we found out are not essential, but really good and helpful for a lot of our customers. For example, 10, 12 months ago, like, yeah, I don't know, like a year ago, a client of ours was asking if we could give them a dump of all the address balances of their chain, like all the gas tokens, like the native tokens. And we found out that this was actually a really easy job for us to do. But, what if some other, client would ask us the same thing? And so we basically built a new feature called the balance dumps, that basically you can go to, I think it's in resources menu. You can just click on dumps and you have daily snapshots of address balances for every chain that we support. And this is really nice for, I don't know, maybe airdrops, for example. So if you want to airdrop tokens to all the users that have had the gas token for a while, you can just download the zip file and how you have the data, and you don't need to go to Dune and everything. So we're trying to also build this kind of pre-filled data sets, if it makes sense. And we're also expanding on, for example, the charts. Etherscan has between 6 and 15 charts on their websites, also on their Explorer services. Well, we have data points. We don't have charts, we have data points. And you may have seen a lot of the charts that we share on the Twitter account, because that is you can simply select your data points, select the chains and the ecosystems that you want to compare, and you can build your own chart basically. And this is the next step based on what Etherscan is doing. So we try to take what Etherscan is doing and then try to make it better because we're natively multi-chain.
With the developer in mind, is that kind of your driving force of who you're trying to serve here, or is it more?
So yeah, we try to serve developers and analysts. So for example, onchain sleuths, Zach XBT, I believe he was not liking Routescan very much when we transitioned Snowtrace from Etherscan to us back in November 23. But I think right now he is liking it a little bit because he started following me a few weeks ago. So maybe that's a signal for us that we're doing a good job. And we also support many chains that Etherscan doesn't support because we're trying to lower the barrier of entry for a lot of chains. And so for a chain that is just getting started and they don't have specific customizations to do, the Explorer price is just $400 a month or $500 a month. Momo, a lot of chains pay us between 5 and 30K a year to have everything, and we support everything. We also try to make a few customizations. Of course, they can have their logos and colors and whatever customized, and everything that the bigger clients ask us. It's and that we need to build because we have some partnership with them, some custom partnership with them. It will also be available to all the smaller chains that don't pay for it. So it's something that the big pay to the bigs pay for the priority of custom features, but then everything will be available to everyone that supports it.
What's the long-term vision here? I'm curious because when we talk a lot about talk with a lot of these chain abstraction protocols, there's always this idea, it's like what we're doing at SEDA, right? Is we're giving people a platform to essentially build their own oracles via an oracle program, right? You just instruct, I want this data, this is where I want it from, this is how I want it returned, right? And we have the infrastructure then to essentially launch your own oracle on top of our network. The same way that Kalani is building a network, right, where you can essentially, deploy your own solvers, right? So it's almost like Oracle programs as a service, solvers as a service. Is your North Star to sort of have this Explorer as a service experience where chains can come in and you mitigate that kind of, you guys having to do that for them and they can input their parameters the same way like a RAS system?
Yeah. So yes, but that is not even a long-term vision. That is more a medium-term vision. So right now we're trying to make steps because we don't want to make this is something that we learned from Routescan. So Routescan has been building and adding features to their products like a little bit. What they do is they add a little bit over time, over a long period of time. We're trying to do that over a shorter period of time. So we try to add a lot of features, but like very small steps every week or every few weeks. One of the things that we're trying to do is streamlining the Block Explorer setup. So right now, the Block Explorer setup is pretty easy, but it's not automated. It's semi-automated. So if you are a chain team, you just simply go to our Explorer as a Service page on Routescan.io, and then you fill a form, you get an email, and then you get into a Telegram group, and the bot asks you for some questions. And those questions are like, if you're a chain or a RAS, how many transactions you have, how many do you expect to have, do you want an SLA, do you want the node to be maintained by us or by you, who owns the domain, and so on. Just, I think yesterday or today, we rolled out a new version because we had a lot of spam going on. And so we created a new Telegram chat for every new user that was contacting the form. But that was like creating a lot of spam. We had like, I think we had something like 85% of spam, but still like 20-25 chain teams that were interested over the past 6 months. And the thing is, we try to make it simpler but more straightforward from the start. So you have, from today, you fill the form, you get an email with the bot, with Telegram bot link, you fill the form, and if you fill the whole form, then you get with the correct fields, you get directed to a new Telegram chat, and this reduces the spam. But over time, we will have a wizard in which you'll be able to do this and pay with the card directly on the website. And the second step of the Block Explorer, this is like the lead funnel, but the creation funnel is really another thing. Right now, when we make a deal with the chain, they need to fill another form that is like RPC, chain ID, whatever, gas token, color, whatever, and then our BD team inputs the information for our engineering team, and we have the Explorer live in 2 hours most of the times. But this is a semi-automated process, so the engineering team needs to review the Block Explorer application, let's say, because we have a lot of checks, but they don't let us make the Explorer as automated, the Explorer creation as automated as we can. And so as soon as we build all the automations that we need, then basically you will be able to have the wizard and simply pay with your card, start the subscription, and then have the Block Explorer live in less than 2 hours. And this is something that I think we will achieve in the next 12 months. Hopefully in the next 9 months. Yeah.
How do you guys see yourself fitting into like the sort of broader chain abstraction space with companies like Particle Network and One Balance? Do you sort of want to help create like a unified sort of like overview in the future? Like, I guess the question is like, is your main focus going to be entirely on explorers and focusing on like on-chain transactions and basically what's happening on the chain? Or do you think you'll also start going into more like customizable features like dashboards for users and asset tracking and things like that? I'm curious like how you sort of see yourself fitting into that.
Yeah, so there are a lot of adjacent products to the Block Explorer. Like, what can you do with data? And we can do two things. And this is actually what we are. I'm going to bring you behind the scenes, let's say. So there are two types of things that we could do. The first thing is to build products with the data that we have. And those can be dashboards, like a competitor to L2Beat, but for other ecosystems, and all kinds of other data, because we have a lot of chains. Like we get paid to index data, and with those data we can do a lot of things. And so this is one thing, like mini products that they use the data that we have. And another thing is to extend the Block Explorer beyond what it's normally like recognized as a Block Explorer. Like, for example, you recognize etherscan.io as a Block Explorer, but what about Beacon Scan, the Etherscan Explorer for the Beacon chain? Is that a Block Explorer? Because that is an explorer for the consensus layer. We're used to seeing the Block Explorer as an explorer for the execution layer.
Yeah.
But what about for the consensus layer? We've tried to do that with AvaScan. We've tried to build an explorer that is integrated between the consensus and the execution layer, and it does work good so far. But it's only focused on the Avalanche ecosystem. It's heavily focused on that. And so right now we are in talks with bridges, staking layers, restaking layers to understand how can we extend the Block Explorer features not outside, but like adjacent to it, and make a Block Explorer that is more complete. For example, you stake and you want to see what's happening on that validator you staked onto, or maybe you want to see the uptime, or you want to see something else that you usually see with different interface, different metaphors, UX metaphors, and so on the specific Explorer. But we want to have that. Like when you're bridging from a chain to another, and maybe you're using layer 0, you're going to go to layer 0 scan, but that is a different metaphor, a different UX layout and objects than a Block Explorer. And we want to have that unified so that you can track everything that you want across every layer. Like you could track it across, from execution, settlement, data availability, consensus layers. And this is a really, really big feat. And I see us building multiple modules, like not building a single indexing engine for this, but building multiple indexing engines that collect and then build some like orchestrator, then makes data available via API to the front end. Because that is and this brings back the vision. The vision is to have something that encompasses every chain possible within 3-5 years, and eventually decentralizing it, trying to understand how to make this auto-sustainable, and to make it so that every chain that wants to have a block explorer doesn't need to ask for it.
I'm curious to understand. I want to like just pivot slightly to more like the chain abstraction kind of use cases, right? And I get it from like the developer point of view. We've been talking a lot about some of the use cases are going to be built on top of SEDA, and one of them is like, you know, people are using SEDA as a means for their AI agents that they can program like a black box around to then consume data, right? And one of the great things that these AI agents will be able to do is post on-chain action, be able to sort of query the data in order to sort of upgrade their smart contracts and then perform better in the future based on whatever the black box is telling them to do, right? I want to learn a little bit more about your data providing. I was just looking on your website there. You guys have, how many RPCs are you offering now? There's hundreds there, 123 that I can see on the website.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about, there's two things I want to understand here is when a user is doing a transaction, a chain abstraction transaction, they're not going to want to switch through all the different blockchains, even if they can do it in one place to see that transaction or that intent that might involve three things. How are you thinking about that kind of UI, UX? And then also would love to like learn a little bit more about like your data provision and that kind of thing, you know, when Routescan times SEDA.
So right now, one moment, let me, because I got the light, I need to switch the light on because otherwise I cannot see it. Okay, now it's better. Okay, so from one side, if you go to our Routescan API page, you can see that the only like modification that you need to make is to iterate on the chain ID. So we have a single path, URL path, and then you just need to change the chain ID to iterate on the different chains. So I don't know, if you want to iterate between Ethereum, Optimism, and Avalanche C chain, you can just have the parameters being 1, 10, and 43, 11, 140, 11, 14, I think. So that is one way that we're approaching it. And I believe there's also plans to like have a all interface to like have everything as a stream because we have it natively in our backend. But the use cases for a full stream of aggregated data is not there yet in our in the needs. It seems weird, but people will still want to select the chains, even if they're doing multi-chain. They don't want to have randomly multi-chain. They want to have multi-chain based on the chains that they like need and they're interested into. So yes, that is something that we're working on, and you know, a lot of it is also in production already. So they can, you know, AI agents can simply query the Routescan API and have free access to up to 2 requests per second. And then, you know, it reminds me that we may need to have a more automated API section for, I don't know, AI crawlers that want to pay for their own APIs. Yeah, you know, because, you know, it may happen like AIs that have money and in their own EOA account, and they want to pay for APIs and just query, you know, something like this can happen. So yeah, that's what we're working on, and we're also, I believe what we want to do is to simply have a single website, and you don't need to understand, you don't need to know which chain you're on. That's the single thing. That's the single thing that we're working on. It's to don't care about what is the chain that you're on. For example, there's another interesting issue about chain abstraction, and it's the token abstraction. So this is a really like well discussed issue, heavily discussed issue, and it's if you have USDC on a chain and you want to have like I don't know, USDC on Ethereum and you want to have USDC on I don't know, Polygon, then you need to bridge. And because if you want to buy Pol on Polygon, then you need to bridge and then swap and so on. So and also it's really frustrating to also in for example, CoinMarketCap does this as well. Like they divide the tokens based on which chain they're on. So like if it's Bitcoin on BNB or Bitcoin on Avalanche, it's like it's a different Bitcoin. It's not different Bitcoin, but it's like a different token.
Okay.
It is okay. It is a different Bitcoin, but it is the same coin. Like it is the same coin. It represents the same coin. That's why we're working on the token page. The token page is singular to every chain. So if you have USDC on Binance, on BNB chain, you will have the token page of USDC on BNB chain. And there's the USDC token page on Ethereum and whatever. We're working on this unified token page that it says USDC is this token. Okay, but it is deployed on X chain at this address, on Y chain at this address, on Z chain at this address, and so on. And of course, this has been a years-long process because we had to build a CMS, like a forensic process to analyze everything and label it and understand what's the nature of a token and so on. And I believe also L2Bit is doing this. L2Bit has rolled out a trusted, trusted tokens page or whatever. But what we're doing is more of a on the multi-chain layer, so that you do know of those tokens how many are on each chain, and you also know like how many of those are locked or not. So if you know the difference between like a circulating token and a liquid token.
Yeah.
And that's also a big difference because, for example, circulating supply is anything that is not locked. But what about tokens that are locked on bridges? They're not seen as locked vested. They're seen as locked in smart contracts. So they're not liquid, but they are in the circulating supply. So when you bridge a token, from one side, they become non-liquid, becoming liquid on the other side. And those are really interesting ideas that the cross-chain narrative and of course the chain abstraction narrative are bringing. Because when you see a token and you see its circulating supply, it does not mean how much it's liquid on the market because of all this stuff, like liquidity on cross-chain bridges, liquidity on canonical bridges, and so on. This is a mess. And it's not about EVM.
It becomes also, it becomes super hard as well. Because like I remember, so we did a token upgrade from FLX to SEDA back in April of this year. And I remember we had FLX bridged to a couple networks for trading on Aurora and also on Near and a couple other ones. And the problem was on their Explorers, it showed our market cap as like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 million, right? Whatever. But the problem was that was just like tracking the tokens that existed on that network, right? And so it didn't have like an aggregated view of all the tokens across all the different networks. You only saw like what existed on that chain, which is fine if like if you know the token and you understand the token's like metrics. But if you're finding it for the first time or you're trying to learn more about it, it doesn't give you a really good view over the holistic sort of environment for the token. I think that's really interesting. I think I'm also curious to hear like, so I mean, I think right now the focus is in EVM chains, obviously because there's so many that you can tap into very quickly. Alt VMs are of course getting more and more popular. Alt VMs I've seen typically build their own explorers. Like as an example, with SEDA, we built our own explorer because we wanted to be able to display consensus, like a consensus layer, and also Oracle programs are being deployed because, you know, for data providers that are providing RPC data or they're providing price data or real world asset data to the Oracle and building Oracle programs with us with developers, like there's so much you have to be able to dive in at a granular level to understand. Not just transactions with blocks as an example. But I feel like for most of these sort of Alt L1s, you know, in the end, they just basically want a block explorer for transactions and active addresses and stuff like that. So I'm curious to hear, like, what is your sort of thesis for Routescan sort of in 2025? Like, do you plan to start supporting non-EVM, like alt VM chains and rolling out that support? Or is it a difficult challenge for you guys to all one?
Yeah. So this is a months-long fight within, the Routescan team, because I sell. My job is to make the business grow. So of course, how to grow it, and by doing it, by doing other VMs. But the thing is, it's hard to build a custom indexer because we don't rely on open source indexer, because we need to build it integrated with our own architecture to be as cost efficient and time efficient as possible. So we thought about that, and we're actually venturing in some alt VM trials, because we're about to launch a testnet, let's say, MVP Explorer for Hyper SDK. That it's a virtual machine that's been developed by Avalanche, by Ava Labs. This is part of our years-long cooperation with Avalanche, and maybe trying that and seeing how it goes, and seeing how easy or hard it is, and how to establish a process to build it as best as we can. Maybe with that information, we can build explorers for new VMs. And we actually have a pretty long pipeline of chains that are on Cosmos and on Polkadot that have asked us to build an explorer for them. But the thing is, other than this, other than the difficulty to build the indexer, it's just that the EVM market is not complete for us yet. It's like, on a quest to have 100% of the clients. And if you count 100%, we're not even, I don't know, 10%. But nobody is more than 10%. Like, not even Etherscan. Etherscan has 25 chains. We have more than 70 unique chains, more than 65, yeah, something like that, around 70 chains. So at 70 chains, if you count there are around 80% EVM chains out of 1,700 chains, you can just do some calculations, some math, some napkin math, and I think it's 70 chains out of 1,700. I don't know how much that would be, not even 10% of the total addressable market. So we still have a long way to go, and maybe as next year, and as we streamline the block explorer creation for EVM, and as we get more recognized, and as we get more clients, then maybe we will have the funds and the space to grow this, because we are not VC funded, so our only money is the profit that we make. That is growing, but it's not like VC fundraisers. It's not millions, so we cannot afford to. I don't want to say waste, because it's gonna take some. It's gonna get money in the future, but to have developers busy on some other things that are not directly and immediately monetizable. But what I would say is that in a vision of decentralization, of course, new modules can always happen, can always be built. And I'm envisioning a future in which the Routescan is decentralized, anyone can build modules. There are guides on how to build the indexer, how to build subgraphs on it. and for any chain to simply build a small piece of indexer that, like an adapter, that is useful for the chain, for the alt VM to be indexed. And I'm also envisioning grant programs for developers to be incentivized to build on top of it. And so yeah, there's really a lot of it, and we're trying to have a lot of these conversations in the team. So yeah, that's about the state of the art.
I like your kind of theory around don't leave the EVM until we've kind of done everything that we can there, and
Yeah,
because it makes sense. Right? We talk a lot with a lot of alt VMs, and there's a lot of movement now. Like Fuel's doing some really great work. There's Fluent's doing a really great work there. Anyone can move VMs, obviously Solana. There's lots happening with alt VMs, but there's still so much happening in the EVM, and there's so many builders still in the EVM, and this whole like kind of chain abstraction narrative. I always like to think bigger and just think any VM, because that's kind of the North Star. That's where we're heading, right? It's just kind of one blended ecosystem. But their EVM within itself, there's still so many people working within that. So the people that are chain abstracting just EVM chains, it makes sense, right? And then the EVM will just feel like one place. So I think that's a really, really good approach.
Now, one of the things is that it's not about being EVM, but being EVM compatible. That's pretty different. Like zk-sync, for example, zk-sync is not EVM. zk-sync they have their own language that is called Zins, I think, whatever, and that builds on EVM compatible bytecode.
Right.
So you build on a different VM that compiles to EVM compatible bytecode.
Yeah.
That is, I think, how you can have the best of the worlds. And I think also Movement Labs was doing something like that. They built a transpiler from Move to EVM, an adapter for block explorers. So I believe that is
too, right? They're not EVM compatible. They're calling themselves EVM equivalent, right? So a lot of people are. It's this kind of blended feeling, right?
Yeah, it's like EVM compatible, EVM equivalent. That's I think EVM compatible is better than EVM. Sorry, EVM equivalent is better than EVM compatible, because EVM compatible means that not all the opcodes are supported, while EVM equivalent means that all the opcodes are supported, so full compatibility is guaranteed. We only require the chain to be EVM compatible as long as they have an archive RPC with debug trace, with the debug trace block by number and block transactions, whatever. Yeah, some ETH debug trace calls available, and so it's that's it. So we have a lot of chains that actually talk to us like they're not fully EVM compatible, but they build it when they need to talk with Explorer providers like us, because otherwise they need to build their own Explorer. Because that simply doesn't make sense, because when you are like when you're just trying to optimize on the bytecode and on the efficiency, and not on some custom features like you guys with oracles, it doesn't make sense not to build some EVM compatible layer, because you don't have extra things. You just have things that are more efficient, and you don't want to sacrifice on compatibility with that.
Yeah, 100%. Makes sense. We're coming towards like we need to jump off for a hard stop here, but as always, I kind of want to finish very quickly. Jack, maybe I'll throw to you for the first couple of minutes, and then we'll go across to Peter. But chain abstraction, it's kind of here as the particle network's teasing now. It's like achieved internally, which means that it's coming externally. We're all in shipping season, right? SEDA's in the middle of shipping season. You guys are obviously shipping, getting chains coming in left, right, and center. Give me your take on the next 6 months for the industry with chain abstraction. What are you expecting to see for the first 6 months of 2025?
I expect a lot of chaos, because a lot of companies and projects will try to have their own flavor of chain abstraction. For example, via interoperability and not exactly via abstraction. Like, I don't know, the new ERC built by Uniswap, the superchain optimism, whatever. It's ERC 7835, I believe. There will be a lot of ways that the chain abstraction can be achieved. But the thing is, we will only know it within a few years, like for DeFi. DeFi is launched actually in 2019 with Compound, but we only got it really stable, I think last year or a couple of years ago, because when DeFi Summer came, there were a lot of exploits, there were a lot of copy pasta and so on, and now I think it's really maturing. So I think between when we actually talk about it and when it's stable, it's gonna come like 2-3 years. But next year will be definitely all about chain abstraction and unified layers.
Yeah,
I fully agree. I mean, I think for us, like the next 6 months, like we have some pretty exciting stuff that we launched on our DevNet over the past month. And the last sort of final step is getting a fork ready with inflation to be pushed live of the SEDA network, and then audit and pushing to mainnet. And I think I totally agree. There's so many competing standards for interoperability with intents versus message-based bridges versus sort of clearing layers and all this stuff. And I think why I'm really excited for SEDA is we sort of sit at the bottom of that stack with settlement. And so whether you're building interop, whether you're building with messaging, or you're building with intents or anything else, you can use SEDA to create this programmable Oracle program that essentially can be configured to whatever you need, right? So settlement from one network to another for interop can be powered with SEDA, whether it's intents or messages or whatever it may be. I think for us, we're already seeing like a huge demand by developers that want to build these types of use cases with us. And I agree, it's going to be like crazy because there's going to be a lot of competing standards, a lot of different ways to achieve chain abstraction and interop. And it'll be hardest, I think, for companies like you that want to then create digestible data from like all these different standards. So my sympathies and best of luck for 2025. So I think, yeah, you're right. It's going to be a crazy 6 months that we'll jump into.
Well, 6 months is just the beginning. I believe it's going to be a crazy next 3 years because the bull market, I believe, is going to continue until end of 2025, and then there's going to be a bear market, and that's when things really solidify. So chain abstraction will be the narrative until the end of 2025, and then it will be the way companies can fundraise to build for the next 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome, Jack. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you.
Incredibly bullish on what you guys are building, obviously as a user and hopefully a customer as well, when you guys roll out support for Cosmos as well. And we're looking forward very much to seeing what happens in 2025 with you guys.
Thank you.
Nice one. All right, guys. We'll catch you later, Jack. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks all for being here.